Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. This is Nithar Ramachandra from the NR Sports Show. This is episode 881, alongside with a couple of our co-hosts, Kia Lyons and AJ Mahoney. And we're joined by a really special guest. His name is Andre Collins. He's a Super Bowl champ from the Washington football team. He's a former Penn State linebacker. He also played for the Bengals, Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions. And now he's doing big things with the NFLPA Foundation, the NFLPA. He's still involved in the game of football. And we're really excited for this interview. And Andre, I just want to say thank you for joining the show. It's truly an honor. And first of all, how are you and your family doing today?
I'm great. First, thanks for having me on. I always love the opportunity to talk about myself, my life, my family, what's going on with my NFLPA family and the community of players. So it's great to be on. And my family, we're doing great. We're hanging in there.
Yeah, that's good. So we'll go in rotation. So AJ, you want to start off here first? All right, it's his screen.
Yeah, Andre, thank you for coming on. Pleasure to talk to you. And first off, I'm a Bengals fan myself, so who day. And my first question for you is, what got you into the game of football?
What got me interested in football? I think, being an American boy, growing up in New Jersey, New Jersey's a big football community. I think some of the best football players that have ever lived come from New Jersey. It was always just something that we did in New Jersey. We rarely played anything else in my neighborhood. It was always football. So when I was 8 years old, I begged my mother if I could play. I had probably begged for a couple of years before that, but she just wasn't willing to give in. And then finally, everyone in my grade was playing, and she finally gave in and let me play. And, I had a good first season, and, things just kept moving on from that point. I worked hard and I had a lot of success. And, from one level to the next, I just kept hanging in there, but I had the real luxury of not really knowing, how good I actually was. I was really just having fun, and it all just worked out.
So
Andre, go ahead. Sorry, AJ.
So a follow-up question to that, when did you finally figure out that you can make the NFL? When did you finally figure out that, hey, I can be an NFL player?
I think it was at some point at Penn State when I saw lots of my teammates going to the NFL. When I was a freshman, our national championship team actually had 40 future NFL players on the team. So I was around a lot of great players. I was holding my own. When I finally got my opportunity to start my junior year, and I realized, hey, this is a real possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So
Andre, you mentioned you're from New Jersey. Did you play for Paulsboro by chance?
No, I know Paulsboro very well. I'm a South Jersey guy, so I'm close to Philadelphia. I know Paulsboro. We never played them, but I know that community and all the great football players that come from down that way.
Yes. So tell us, when you were a child, were you playing with your brother then? Were you guys, learning together? What was that like?
Yep, I think my brother was fortunate that I begged my mother because he got to kind of ride along and played as well. So I always played with my younger brother, Jerry, was always on all of my teams. And then when I went to Penn State, when he graduated, he actually went to Colorado State for a year and then transferred to Penn State. So we were teammates at Penn State as well. So it was just fun growing up. We were both running backs, and we just had a ball.
That's awesome. I love it.
Hey, I'm from Jersey too. So let's go. I'm from Jackson.
From Jackson. Yeah, I know Jackson well. That's Great Adventure about exit 7A.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So I want to ask you though, growing up from Jersey, obviously being from Jersey, and do you have any role model? Who was that one role model that you looked up to in the game of football?
Well, I think, certainly at my high school, it was a community of great athletes. Topper Clemens was a senior running back when I was in 8th grade, and we all used to kind of jump the fence on Saturdays to watch Topper Clemens play. He was just a big, strong running back, and ended up going to Wake Forest and had a good career at Wake Forest, and then a short time with the Dallas Cowboys. So he was really the barometer in our community. And there were lots of players after him. But for me, when I was coming up through middle school, we couldn't wait to get over to the field on Saturdays to watch Topper Clemens run.
You hopped the fence. I love it.
Yeah, we hopped the fence. We were bad seventh graders, so we hopped.
Well, you're doing real good now. So in the
We
NFL,
didn't have that 50
That's
cents
good.
to get in.
So what was your favorite part about like your high school, overall, just your high school experience? Like, did you do anything like really stupid that you regret doing back then, or do you just enjoy your entire?
I mean,
high school experience?
as kids, we always did lots of stupid things. Fortunately for us, there was no Instagram or Twitter or anything like that. So we got away with a lot of silly things. I mean, we never committed any crimes and we never hurt anyone. It was just a lot of mischief. But our football coaches were police officers in town, so we weren't going to be able to get away with too much. I mean, my whole football career from the little leagues through middle school, through high school, there was always a police officer that was our coach. So, we respected the community, but, we were teenagers at the same time and we did some dumb stuff, but nothing that I regret.
Andre, tell us how exciting it was to be able to play for Penn State. I mentioned my dad played, he went to Penn State, but to play for Penn State, it's such an energy. It's huge. How did that feel to know you're going to play football for them?
I mean, it felt great. I think, I was always, a Penn State fan on the edge growing up outside of Philadelphia, but there were lots of college teams that I liked. But I remember the 1985 season when Penn State lost the national championship to Oklahoma. And there were a lot of great wins throughout that season, and they just really got my attention. So when it was time for me to choose some college visits, Penn State was one of them. I also chose Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, and Stanford were my official visits. And I'll be honest, Penn State was probably the worst visit out of all five.
Wow.
About 2 feet of snow on the ground. They stuck me in a dorm room with a few other players. I was sleeping on a cot. It was probably the worst trip out of all of them. But there was just something about that uniform, especially the all white on the road and those black shoes. It just kind of suited my personality, where I thought I was tough. I thought I was a tough guy, and I just liked that persona of no frills, let's play tough, let's play hard, let's play old school. So, Penn State was great for me, and my experience there certainly matched my expectations.
Wow.
That's so cool. Who was your coach there?
All of the names that from Joe Paterno was the head coach
Oh, he
to
was head. Okay.
Joe Paterno was the head coach. I started out as a defensive back at Penn State. So Ron Dickerson,
Okay.
my defensive backs coach. And then I kind of ate my way to linebacker, and there Joe Sarah gave me just the best football education a young player could ever imagine. And that really propelled me to the NFL.
Wow.
That's amazing. How was Joe? How was playing for Joe?
Well, Joe was awesome. I mean, I've said it before in other interviews. He was electrifying. I couldn't wait to get down to the team room every day to hear what he was going to talk about. It always wasn't X's and O's. He talked about the great American poets. He talked about art. He talked about life in so many different ways. He shared his own stories about growing up in Brooklyn, New York. So it was always exciting to hear what he was going to say. And he was electrifying. I mean, there was nothing that as players we weren't willing to do for him or for Penn State.
Well,
That's amazing.
Yeah, so speaking of Penn State, what was it like just playing in front of your family and friends, wearing that blue and white jersey, helmet, obviously playing underneath Joe Paterno, a legendary coach? And what was it like just being part of history, because Penn State has a lot of history to that team, and what was it like just playing in front of those friends and family? And what was your favorite Joe Paterno quote, because he had so many quotes?
Yeah, there were lots of quotes, but let me start by saying that when I was being recruited out of high school, and Joe Paterno actually came to my school and was walking through the hallways, and all the students saw him, that they just couldn't believe that I was going there. So it was just really exciting. And I think I made all of my classmates proud, and I never left my classmates behind. So, it was fun to play for them, make them feel proud that they were from Cinnaminson. When I got to Penn State, I'll be honest, that very first game we were playing Temple in a night game.
Wow.
And it was just the longest day. It was the longest day. I was dressing for the game, but I wasn't actually going to play. And I just remember almost falling asleep on the sideline because it was just such a long day. But the energy and the speed of the game, when I was watching from the sideline, my first thought was, I'll never play this game because it's so fast. But over the years, practicing so hard the way that we did, kind of, clawing your way through the ranks. I did end up playing a little bit my freshman year. We won the national championship that year. And, the experience was just wonderful. Overall, just a wonderful experience. We won so many football games. And I was just there at a great time, and it was great to be a part of that. What quote? I just remember, I don't remember quotes. I just remember Joe constantly yelling at us, and he allowed us to call him Joe, and we called all of our coaches by their first name. But I just remember, nuts. That's what he would always say. But directed at me was the spring where I got thrown out of the coaches clinic practice. It was all the high school coaches from Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Jersey, and they would come watch us practice, and they were around the field 8 or 10 deep. And, I was a, preseason All-America. So, lots of them were there to see me. And Al Golden, I don't know where Al Golden's coaching now. I think he coached at Temple for a little while and coached in the pros. He's probably still coaching somewhere. Al Golden was a tight end on that team, and he fired off on the ball, and he kind of hit me a little too hard, I thought. I mean, I was going into my senior year. You don't get to hit me that hard. So hit me a little hard, and then we kind of pushed and shoved each other a little bit, and Joe came running from about 50 yards away, got a hold of my jersey, and he threw me off the practice field. And I said, for crying out loud, Joe, it wasn't me. And he said, it's never you. Get out of here. So I got embarrassed in front of about 2,000 football coaches, but now, you know what? I didn't mind. I got to the showers early. I was happy.
Wow.
That's a story. That's a story.
So going back into your Penn State career, I kind of like 3 questions mixed into one. So you were an All-American at Penn State, and you're a Buckus Award finalist. How did that feel? But also, how did it feel being on a national championship team?
Yeah, I mean, the national championship team, that was amazing because that experience, being a young player, being around so many guys that would end up going pro. I just admired Shane Conlon so much, who was a college All-America and played 10 seasons with the Buffalo Bills and the Rams. There was so much about Shane's game that I tried to emulate or model my game after. So my freshman year was a really important year. And I think the thing that I remember most about that year is after winning the championship, we were back in the locker room and just watching all those senior guys just hug and cry because of the journey that they had been on was really special. And then one of the players, said to me, he said, you're going to be a great player one day. Just keep working hard. And I thought in that moment, that was a really special thing to say to a young player. And I never forgot that. And I never wanted to disappoint those guys. Even after they left, I never wanted to disappoint those guys by not working as hard as I could.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And then to finish up, being an All-America at Penn State, it meant everything. It meant validation for all the hard work. It validated that I was tough. Being a Buckus Award finalist validated that I was one of the best college linebackers in 1989, and almost assured me that I was going to get drafted high. So, all of those things, but, even though those are great awards, you never do those things without your teammates. I had some great teammates along the way, guys on their front line blocking for me so I could make tackles, guys behind me covering up receivers, so that I could make a sack. I held guys for other guys. We always piled on, and it was great. And we never helped up the opposing team's running back. That was just something on my defense I just didn't want us to do. I said, we're out here working hard. it's a long game. And if we don't help that guy up, maybe by the fourth quarter, he's not running as hard as he would if we were helping him up all day. So save your energy. And that was just kind of a little inside joke that we had, but we never did it. And it wasn't because we weren't good sports. We shook everyone's hand after the game, but it was just, trying to find a way on a hot day or a long day to have a little bit of a competitive edge. But Penn State taught me all those tricks. I mean, I learned those things from someone else and I just passed them down. So, I mean, it was the best experience. I can't say anything else about it.
It sounds like a lot of great camaraderie and honor and respect. How was the fellowship inside the locker room, and did you guys spend time together outside of it? It sounds like a really good, like, solid woven team.
Yeah, I mean, we did. And, there were, 150 players in that locker room. And certainly when you're a young player coming to Penn State and you see all the guys in front of you, you're probably thinking, man, I'm never going to play here. And, there was a little bit of teasing and, joking around going on. And certainly the freshmen were, part of those jokes most of the time, because you kind of had to earn your way through the ranks to get your blue practice jersey. That meant you were a starter. But I think everyone that went to Penn State during those days and thereafter understood what the culture was about, what hard work meant. I love those guys. They're still my friends today. I didn't hang out with the offensive players as much as I did the defensive players. I lived and roomed with the defensive players, even so much so that when I went to the Japan Bowl, Blair Thomas, who was the great running back that went in the first round that same year that I got drafted, we were roommates at the Japan Bowl. And I actually said to him, I said, geez, Blair, I said, you're actually pretty nice. It's finally nice to be able to meet you after 4 years of college. But that was really the only time I had a chance to really spend time with him, because I just spent so much time with the defensive players. But we're all great today. I mean, and we all, we have a rule that we can't say no to one another, even today. So it's, I'm just glad I'm a Penn State man and part of that system of players and that community of players.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
Yeah, that's really awesome, man. Now take us to your draft experience. You got drafted in 1990, round 2, pick 46 by Washington. And what was that like? Obviously, the draft is different from back in the day, but what was the call like when you got the call from Washington and you still close to home? And what was it like? And finally starting your career, you got to your goal, which was the NFL. And what was it like, feeling like for you?
I mean, I think for me, I knew I was going to get drafted. It was just a matter of, when. So I didn't want to make a big deal about it. I just remember being in my apartment at Penn State, really by myself, at that point in the school year. And I was just watching on TV by myself because my agent said, hey, you got to stay close to the phone. So that's what I did. I got a call from the New Orleans Saints, and Coach Mora was the head coach at the time, and he got on the phone and he was really excited. And he said, hey, just sit tight. The Saints are going to take you with the next pick. And of course, you want the opportunity. So to Coach Mora, I said, wow, thank you so much. I'm so excited. But really, when I hung up the phone, I was thinking, gosh, not the Saints. I don't want the Saints. And thank God they didn't pick me with their pick. They went right past me. And I said, I think they drafted Ronaldo Turnbull, who ended up being a pretty good player. So I was like, okay. And then I got a call from longtime, Redskins secretary Barbara Fry, and she said, hey, Coach Gibbs is on the line. And I was like, now we're talking. So Coach Gibbs got on the phone and he said, how would you like to be, a Redskin? And I said, I think that would be absolutely great. And he said, sit tight. We're going to take you with our next pick. And they did. And, growing up in the Philadelphia area, the Eagles weren't very good at that time. And, a lot of their games weren't on TV, and they had the old NFL blackout rule. So we got lots of Washington games. So it was a team that I knew well. I wanted to play on grass, and, I really wanted to play Washington. So it was perfect.
That's great.
Wow. Yeah.
So speaking of Coach Gibbs, What was it like playing for a Hall of Fame coach and a 3-time Super Bowl winner?
Well, I'll tell you, my experience at Penn State prepared me for Washington because I think, unlike a lot of pro clubs, especially at that time under Coach Gibbs, there really was a kind of a college atmosphere when it came to, teammates and teaming and, working hard and understanding your role. And wanting to work hard and play hard, for the coach, for the organization, and for your teammates. So in those respects, it was a lot alike. I had worked hard at Penn State. That's what Coach Paterno expected. So going to Washington was really just a continuation of that. I think, the Washington football team, I should never say Redskins again, and I apologize. I was just back in time. So that's why I said it. But, playing for Washington, they were tough, tough like Penn State. You worked hard. We ran the football. We played great defense, and the coach expected a lot out of you. So, being able to come to a winner and winning lots of games early in my career and having the opportunity to be on a Super Bowl team and to be able to contribute was really special. So I thank Coach Gibbs for that.
Andre, tell us what it was like going from the Penn State attire to now Washington. How did it feel to put on an NFL uniform and then to go out on the field?
Well, I mean, the Washington uniform was iconic, back then. I loved those burgundy pants and the white jerseys and, that burgundy and gold stripe on the white socks. It was perfect. So it was a great uniform. And I was really excited to be able to wear white cleats again. So I was really fired up about that. And I felt like I looked good in that uniform. So I was excited. I really was. So, I mean, it was a great uniform to be able to wear that uniform. And, it's one of the better uniforms in pro sports.
Wow.
I think I just imagine it must have just felt awesome. Just like the first time you put on NFL gear.
I remember that, certainly not practice. I mean, the practice uniforms were pretty awful, but I remember the first time in the preseason game, being able to put that uniform on and going out and playing in that first preseason game. It really did feel amazing. You see Washington in the NFC Championship so many years, when I put the uniform on and I trotted out onto that field for the first preseason game, I was really like, man, this feels like I'm in NFL playoffs wearing this uniform. So it was great.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's probably a lot less stressful when it's a preseason game rather than, the first one.
Well, I mean, for a young player trying to make the team,
it was still stressful.
It was stressful. And Washington had a history of cutting high round draft picks. So I wasn't safe like these kids are today just because they're high round draft picks. You really had to earn your way and make the team. So it was stressful right up until that first real game.
Yeah.
So this is a two-part question. And obviously coming in as a rookie, you're playing with players like Mark Ripken, the quarterback, Ricky Sanders, wide receiver, Darryl Green, who I love, a great player in the league. Todd Bowles, man, you played with Todd Bowles. Jimmy Johnson was on the team. What was it like playing with those type of players? And the next part, take us through your debut. What was your debut like?
I mean, playing with those guys was great. And I still have so much respect for them today. And so many of them still live here in the Washington, D.C. area. So I do get to see them a lot. I guess, maybe my best friends on the team at that time were, there were other rookies. DeJuan Francisco, who played at Notre Dame, was a rookie on that team. He was probably my best friend my rookie year. Then in those later years, Martin Mayhew, who's now back working for the club, he was always good to me. But Todd Bowles, we had the same age, and so he always looked out for me. I mean, those guys were great. I was a young guy on a team full of veteran players, so it was just good to be able to learn from those guys. They had won so many football games that I was going to believe whatever they told me, honestly. So, that's really how it was. They were great players, and I played with them during a great time. My very first game, my first real game, I probably played better in the preseason than I did in my first real game. It was against the Arizona Cardinals. at RFK, and I pretty much stunk up the field. I did okay, but I let the running back, I think it was Johnny Johnson, get around me for like a big 35-yard game, and I just kind of hung my head, and I was like, darn, why did that happen? I'm so unlucky. But, I'm glad it happened that way because, it kind of set my jaw that I needed to work a lot harder and to be more ready.
Yeah.
I'm on game day because it was a different level, and I figured it out. So it was good.
Hey, you had a great career. So
Thank you.
So my next question for you is, in your second year playing, you won the Super Bowl. What was that feeling like, standing on the podium and like, I made it?
It was, again, I was a young player on a team full of veteran players. And for most of those guys, it was their third Super Bowl. So I still kind of felt like I was along for the ride. I was just happy that I had worked my way into the lineup, that I got to play a lot. I got to contribute in the actual Super Bowl. I played a lot. I made some plays, to be able to say that you were on that team and contributed to the win and to really one of the greatest seasons in NFL history was really special. So, at our big rally in DC after we won the championship, standing up there on the podium, it really was kind of surreal looking out, seeing all those people, and you're thinking, man, we just won the Super Bowl. And we'll probably win it every year from now on, but that didn't happen. But it was fun. But as a young player, that's what I was thinking. But it was great.
Standing on that podium must have been pretty incredible to win the Super Bowl, but still I'll ask because a lot of answers are different. What is your favorite NFL or football? Let's just go favorite football memory.
My favorite football memory, and I'm going to shock you. So my favorite football play was in that 1991 season when it was like third and long, and the Lions were kind of driving to tie the game. If they had picked up the first down, there's a good chance they probably would have gone on to score a touchdown and tie up the game in that NFC Championship. But there was one play where I kind of dove over Barry Sanders on a blitz, and I sacked Eric Kramer.
wow.
It was a big play in the game. That was one of my favorite plays and probably one of my favorite pro games. But my favorite football moment, and I'm going to get a little sentimental, was when I had just, in my 9th season, I went to Chicago and I played my 9th season and part of my 10th season in Chicago. And then I got let go and got picked up by the Detroit Lions. And then it was a Sunday in Detroit where I wasn't dressed for the game. I just had on sweats. I wasn't going to play in the game, but we were playing the Bears. And I was kind of standing on the edge of the tunnel, and the Bears were coming out. And these were my teammates, earlier in that year and all of last year. And that was a great football experience as well. But every one of those guys kind of, made a right turn and deliberately came over to me and kind of gave me a high five.
Oh, nice.
Gave me a hug. And it was a whole trail of them. And that just made me feel so good. And that's really what it was all about. It's about the relationships and the respect that we have for one another. So for Barry Minter and those guys to make a right turn, to come over and say hi and wish me well, that's my all-time favorite football moment.
I love it.
Wow.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So speaking of obviously NFL is a business, and you got to move from. Unfortunately, players move around, either trades or cuts or whatever free agents. So for you, how tough is it for you and your family that you had to, after winning a Super Bowl that's with the team that drafted you, and did you ever think to yourself that you could have stayed with Washington throughout your career? But how tough is it for you? You had to move from different teams, but like the pro side of it, you got to learn different cultures, different teammates, personalities at the same time.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was pretty pissed off when, I was going to have to move on from Washington. I really thought I had done enough in my 5 years in Washington to be able to stay longer. But the coaching staff had changed. Joe Gibbs retired, and Richie Pettibone coached the following year. and then they let him go and they brought North Turner in. And in North Turner's year, I probably had statistically my best year as a pro, but for whatever reason, we just didn't see eye to eye on some things. And my style of play doesn't always fit with what the next defensive coordinator or defensive coaches are looking for. So, I had to move on. So I went to Cincinnati with some other, Washington coaches that were let go. A lot of them were in Cincinnati. I had chances to go to Tampa, the Raiders, Kansas City. But I feel like I made the best choice for myself by staying with the same coaches that drafted me and gave me an opportunity in Washington. So I went to Cincinnati for 3 years, and Cincinnati was a great experience. There are no better fans than the Bengals fans. When you're lined up on that field at the beginning of the game and they're playing Welcome to the Jungle and that stadium is rocking, you get goosebumps from head to toe. So it was a very different experience than Washington. We didn't win as many games, but we won a lot of games. And it was a lot of fun playing in Riverfront and, trying to make plays in the AFC. I mean, it was just a different experience in the AFC, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then the only time I did not play with the Washington coaches was the time that I was in Chicago. And that was a great experience because, I loved those players. I loved being able to wear the Bears uniform. If you're a football historian or a football fan, that's also one of the classic uniforms. And they have a classic history. So I felt really honored to be able to wear that uniform and play on Soldier Field. And then in my 10th season, I went to Detroit and I went back with Larry Piccatello, who was my linebacker coach my rookie year. So, most of those years I played with the same coaching staff.
Hey, speaking of the Bears, you're going to like this. I had Brian Urlacher on the show and Chris Zorich on the show.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I don't know Urlacher as well as I know Zorich because Zorich and I were kind of the same age.
Yeah.
We kind of came out together, so I saw him around a lot. But no, I mean, the Bears, just a fantastic organization, first-class organization. They treated us well. And I'm sorry to all my Washington football fans out there, but that's the team that I root for. Because, I was, again, I was a little upset that Washington let me go. And then I went to Cincinnati. And even though the Bengals were a great organization, I wanted to be back in the NFC. So my prayer every day was, please, God, get me back to the NFC, and whatever team that is will be my favorite team for the rest of my life. So it happened to be the Bears, and that's my team. My wife is a Bears fan. My mother-in-law is a Bears fan, and I dressed my kids in Bears outfits.
Andre, I love it. You made a deal.
That's my team. So
that's great.
So, like I said earlier, I'm a Bengals fan. So, what was it like facing against the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Browns 2 times a year?
Well, I mean, if you're a Bengal, then you hate the Steelers. I'll just be honest. And you hate the Browns as well. The Ravens were still kind of a new team, kind of coming along. So that bitterness wasn't there yet. We had some classic games against the Steelers and Steelers players. I mean, that was great. And then being able to play, in Cleveland in the old Brown Stadium, if you love football, then you want to be on that field with the dog pound behind you, rooting against you. But I loved my time in Cincinnati. I mean, after I left Washington, Cincinnati was just right for me. I mean, I enjoyed the town. I enjoyed the fans. I enjoyed my 3 seasons there. I played a lot. I made lots of plays. And I can't really complain about Cincinnati. Again, it was different. I was in the AFC. So, it was a more pass-happy league than the NFC. So that was very different. I mean, the games were always a lot longer because they were throwing on every play. And, and I hated that. I wanted those games to be a lot faster than that, but it was what it was. And it was good. It was good.
Andre, as a professional, you've made so many sacrifices and the sport is very hard on the body. Tell us some challenges that you've been through as far as football.
I mean, I think physically I've been pretty lucky. I played my whole 10-year career, and I probably only missed just a handful of games. I remember I, sprained my hamstring a couple of times, and I took on like a sprained MCL, which was not serious early on in my career. So I think those injuries are most responsible for the few games that I missed. I did hurt my back in 1992 early on in my career, and it was bad enough that I needed to have back surgery, but I had a successful back surgery and ended up playing 7 seasons after that. And still to this day, I feel really blessed. My back is fine. I think the only thing that bothers me a little bit right now is that I was fine. I mean, I can train, I can run, I can crawl, I can jump, I can do all those things. But I thought during this pandemic that I would turn into a jogger, and that was just not a good decision. So I bought some really fancy jogging shoes, and I thought I was going to go out and do some running on the road. And after about 4 weeks, my knees said that's not for you. And it's been a long road back trying to get my knees to calm down. And I'm almost there. I just have this one little spot on my right knee that just won't allow me to be myself. But all in all, the game is a physical game, but I played fast. I did not play with my head. I was a tackler, and, to tackle people, sometimes it's an ankle, sometimes it's an arm, sometimes it's a jersey that you grab. And I never really made it part of my game to try and blow someone up. I just wanted to get them down as fast as I could. So I think physically, because that's the way that I played, that I was able to play a long time, and, I'm relatively injury free.
Yeah, great.
Wow, that's amazing. And so I want to talk about obviously coaching, and a lot of former players are now coaches. And obviously you play for Joe Gibbs, Joe Paterno, North Turner, and then obviously your former teammates like Jimmy Johnson coached for the Cowboys, and you had Todd Bowles obviously currently coaching with the Buccaneers. So what's it like seeing some of your former teammates being coaches now and having success in the coaching ranks?
I mean, I think it's great. And, to see so many of them have those opportunities, it's great. And it's impressive, because coaching is really a difficult thing. I've never really coached more than just, some Pop Warner Little League guys, and that's hard enough. So, sometimes I do see them and I say to myself, man, I wish maybe I had taken that route and could have gotten on the sideline, because that energy is infectious. You miss it. But coaching's hard, and I know that's not my forte. So it's just impressive. And, whether they win, lose, or tie, it's impressive. So, I wish all of those guys well. I mean, Todd Bowles has had an amazing career coaching, and he's had some great teachers from the time that he was a player. And I think he tries to emulate some of the wisdom that Coach Richie Pettibone used to impart on us as we were putting game plans together. And I feel like I see a little bit of that scheming in some of Todd Bowles' defenses.
Yeah, just to follow up here, and obviously this is an important topic that I like to discuss, and because minority coaches still don't have enough chances in the league. For example, your former teammate Eric Bammerly from the Chiefs, I think he should have been the head coach this year, but now he's still the offensive coordinator with the Chiefs. So what do you think they need to change? Obviously, you work for the NFLPA now, but what do you think needs to change for minority coaches like Jim Caldwell? He needs another chance. This guy's a heck of a coach. So what do you think they need to do to give more chances to minority coaches in the league?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, it's tough. And Jim Caldwell was a coach on those Penn State staffs when I was back there in the 80s. But, I mean, it's tough. The tough thing is that, these clubs are private businesses. You can't mandate that they hire a certain someone or a certain talent. I think we've made a lot of progress in mandating that, clubs have to interview Black coaches before they make their hire. I don't want to get too political.
Yeah.
I think sometimes teams just check that box to say that they've done everything that they need to do. But now the tough thing, I think, for Black coaches, especially Black former players, is that, you know, we've moved into this new competing space with with women that are pursuing coaching. So it's going to probably get even a little more difficult for the former players that are seeking those opportunities. I don't have an answer. I don't think that the NFLPA has certainly taken a position on what I'm saying, so I don't want to get too political. But I would love to see them get more opportunity. I think along the way they've proven that they can coach, that they can win, and that they most importantly can command respect from their players.
So I'm gonna throw out like a little statement answering Nathan, like, yeah, Jim Caldwell and Eric Bieniemy really need a shot. Eric Bieniemy might be one of the best assistant coaches we've seen in a while, and Jim Caldwell just didn't get the chance he deserved. But my next question is, going on to your NFLPA role, what's it like and what's your favorite part of it?
Well, I think for me, in working with the former players, certainly as a player and a former player now, I have lots of, real-time personal experiences that can translate into being able to create programming that can impact a player's life. Working in the Professional Athletes Foundation, we're not a traditional foundation that's, super philanthropic, outward facing. Our foundation is set up so that we can provide financial assistance and programming to former players. So first and foremost, that's what we do. So to be able to talk to the players that are retiring from the game, and that's anywhere between 400 and 600 players every year that leave the game, but to be able to be there to welcome them to their life after football and really help set their path and create a game plan for them as they move on is really important. And I think the best part about my job is that all these players are so different. They're individuals. So every day is different. Every year is different. Every generation of players continues to change. So I've got a wonderful team of co-workers that work with me on the foundation. They're young, they're exciting, they're creative. And we just change with the players. So I always say the day that I don't have compassion for a former player, that's the day that someone else should do my job. So for now, it works. I'm in my 18th year at the NFLPA. I've had a couple of different roles, but I've really enjoyed this role most recently.
Let's go. That's awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm clapping. I'm applauding because I think it's an amazing job. I think it's necessary. Tell me, do you have a program where you match up the veterans with the new players so that they can talk about their experiences financially, emotionally, all that?
We don't match them one-to-one, but there are certainly opportunities for the players that have played the game to mentor players that are leaving the game. So we do create those opportunities. We have a chapter system of former players, around the country, mostly in NFL team cities where most of our players still live where they played. So, in that chapter system, our young former players really get the opportunity to ask those guys that had gone before them, how did you do it? How did you survive not being a former NFL? How did you survive not being an NFL player? Because it really is an emotional transition. And even for myself, I had gone to Penn State, career wise, I have always wanted to be a hospital administrator. So I was very prepared, but you're never prepared for that emotional upheaval that comes with not being able to step out onto that field or step out onto that stage and hear people cheer for you. I think that's the part you miss the most.
I imagine. I mean, I just imagine often that it must be like a passing, like a death. And in a sense, it's a huge change where you're in the team, on the team, you're part of it, and then you're out. And that's big.
It's very tough, but we've made a lot of progress over the last few years, trying to help players connect more with the emotional part of that transformation. All too often in the early years, we talked a lot about finding the next career, get career ready, get job ready.
Right.
And it was hard to get job ready when emotionally there was still a lot of work to be done. So especially now, the group that I work with, the Professional Athletes Foundation at the NFLPA, we really are focused a lot more on the emotional aspect of what transforming is like. And we leave some of the job readiness to some of the other departments. We really try and get in and try and rebuild that player's, sense of self-worth, and what's going to motivate you to have joy in your life, what's going to be important to you over the next 10 years. So we try and get players to focus more on that as they retire.
That's amazing. That's wonderful.
Yeah, let us know if you need help. If you guys need help, any help with the foundation, we can help with the foundation too.
Well, I'm
Absolutely.
sure Leslie Isler, who's on my team, will be reaching out to you. I'm sure she's watching this somewhere. So
Absolutely. Sign us up.
Yeah. So I want to ask you though, what are you guys most looking forward to now? Because the season that's upon us, preseason's underway, almost done actually, and regular season's up. I can't wait. I'm really pumped for the season. So what are you guys most looking forward to for this upcoming season, and the players that you work with right now, and for their seasons, and for them to succeed and continue to grow as a player? And what are you guys most looking forward to as a team?
Well, I mean, I think as an organization, we're excited that football is back again. I mean, it's always the best part of the year. This is what we do. We're a union that, is there to protect and serve the active players in the league, as well as the guys that played the game. So just the fact that another football season is upon us, we're all excited. We're hoping that we can get through this year with fans in the stands. I thought even though there were no fans last year, that it was a fantastic season. I thought the television product, the way that the games were displayed on TV, you didn't really miss anything. I mean, I thought it was a fantastic season, and the players were great for being able to play those games without fans. So as always, we just, made the best team win. May the players play hard. May they play without injury. May their families stay safe, throughout the year. We never really try and pick a winner as staff. We're just there to support all of our players in the same way.
So
Go Bears, go Bears.
I'm gonna ask you about the Bears soon.
So last year, with just no fans in the stands, like, how was the environment like? Like, how did environment at the office you work out, like Zoom calls? Like, what was the environment like?
I mean, the environment for us, it was really difficult because we went into kind of lockdown right at the end of the season. We had just finished our player reps meeting in Florida, and while we were there, we got the word that the office was going to close. So on my way back from Florida that was it. I hadn't been back to the office. So working remotely, working from home to try and serve the players was a little bit difficult at first, but like a lot of businesses, we kind of, we made the switch, we retooled, and we kind of figured out, how to do it. I was sad because I didn't get to go to any actual games last year, and I usually go to a few games every year because I love the energy that's in the stadium. But as a former player, I just couldn't even imagine how you play an NFL football game without any fans. That's why I was so impressed with how the players put on the season last year. So, I mean, it's been very difficult. We're still in a situation where we're still working from home. But, the COVID protocols that we've put in place to protect the players and protect their families was a success last year. So we're just going to continue that this year, and hopefully there will be fans, and hopefully the pandemic slows down to a point where we can kind of get back to life as normal.
Definitely, absolutely, and I applaud them too. That last year, it's incredible without the fans there. Andre, did you get to play with Jerome Brown against him?
I I played against Jerome Brown when he was a senior at Miami, and I was a freshman at Penn State, and then certainly on those early years in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and what was that like? I mean,
he's a defensive player, and I'm a defensive player, so maybe the only time I would have seen him would have been on a field goal or something if he was on field goal protection. And I think there's one picture, an old picture I have where, you know, we're both in the same frame together. But thank God I never had to put my small body up against his big, massive body. So, you know, that probably kept me in the game a lot longer. But no, I never really had the chance to engage him physically. But he was a great player in college, and he was a great pro. And his teammates loved him in Philadelphia. I know some of those guys, and they still talk about him to this day. So just a lot of respect for what he was able to accomplish on the field, and certainly gone too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It was big when he passed here in Philadelphia.
And so now we do this fun little segment on the show. It's called the rapid fire segment. You ready for this?
Okie doke, I'm ready.
All right. So I said earlier I'm going to ask about the Bears. So since you guys are big Bear fans, I'm sure you want Justin Fields to start week 1. But what are your thoughts on Matt Nagy saying Andy Dalton for week 1?
Again, I don't want to get too political because I'm here to represent the players, but I guess Matt Nagy, I know enough coaches. I think Coach Nagy's just saying what he has to say right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Fields in the short run.
What did you think about the Bengals picking Jamar Chase over Penn Sewell?
I mean, for them, it's a good pick. I'll leave it at that.
I'm going to go light. I'm going to say, what's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie all time is Spike Lee's Mo Better Blues. I can watch it a million times as if I've never seen it. I love that
Spike
movie.
Lee.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a legend. A big New York Knicks fan. Let's go. So I want to ask you, being a former Penn State linebacker, and I'm a big Cowboy fan, what are your thoughts on Micah Parsons so far?
Micah was great at Penn State, and you know, from the early days, you know, you could see it. You know, I'm a little jealous because I really didn't get my hands on Micah Parsons because LeVar Arrington kind of like adopted as his second son right away and got him in jersey number 11, and no one else has been able to get close to him. But he's a Penn Stater. He's a Penn State linebacker. And for us Penn State linebackers, he's going to do a great job extending our tradition as linebacker U.
Nice.
Who's your favorite player from the past before you started playing? Like, who'd you look up to?
Oh man, I mean a few guys, but when I was a boy, the Minnesota Vikings were a fantastic football team. So they were my favorite team when I was, 4, 5, and 6 years old. And my favorite player offensively was Chuck Foreman. And then my favorite defensive player at that time was Paul Krause, just because he played so easy back there at safety, made a million interceptions. But, those were probably my 2 favorite players when I was a young boy. Wow. But then as I got older and really started to study the game more and had a desire to play professionally, I think, Joey Browner, who was also a safety for the Minnesota Vikings. I can remember sitting in the dorm, with other players, watching games and watching Joey Browner and just thinking, man, this guy is playing possessed, man. No ball carriers getting away from that guy. And that's how I wanted to play. I just wanted to get to the ball and grab a jersey, grab a leg, whatever I had to do to get a guy down. But I felt like Joey Browner, certainly Shane Conlon at Penn State, but I thought watching Joey Browner do it in the pros, that's who I tried to play like.
Wow.
Love it. And did you ever, when you were playing with your brother, did you ever feel like extra protective around him?
I wasn't protective. He was a big, strong guy. So he was pretty tough and he could handle himself. He played offense at Penn State and I played defense. And I think in one of our blue-white scrimmages, I got to tackle him. And I made the mistake of saying in an interview that I bloodied his nose, which was not true. but he never forgave me for
Oh.
that.
Oh
So,
no.
never forgave me for that. But then my other brothers played at Penn State also. I had three other brothers that played after my brother Jerry. And when I was a veteran player in the league playing for the Bears, my youngest brother was a rookie player for the Cardinals, and he actually lined up against me on a punt. So I did what all good older brothers would do. I olayed. I let him go right past me and run down the field and make it.
Oh, like,
That's great. That's awesome.
that's a great story. That's a great story. It's a rough game. It's a rough game.
Yeah.
Share with us one of the ways that you keep yourself grounded, that personal balance before a game, during when you played professionally, or now even. What's a way that you maintain personal peace and balance?
Well, I always thought, that balance was good. And I think early on in my career, I didn't have enough of it. We were football all the time. So really the only balance that we had was, hanging out with each other, hitting the bars and restaurants in DC. And that was fun, but you needed a little more substance than that. So I think by the time my 5th year rolled around, I really needed more. The game just wasn't really enough. I really needed more. So I started to paint. I was an art student in high school. So I went out and I bought some canvas and I bought some paints.
Wow.
And I started to paint, and I took trumpet lessons as an adult. So my off season was filled with learning to paint from some of the better artists in DC at the time, just kind of hanging out with those guys, learning how to prime a canvas and mix paints, and taking trumpet lessons over at the Levine School of Music as an adult.
That's amazing.
So that's what I did. And even to this day, I think balance is still important. I work an important job, but I still find time to paint today.
Wonderful.
Certainly I'm a father, so encouraging my kids to tap into all their skills, talents, and abilities. And it's great. I've got a great work-life balance, and I think that's extremely important. If the NFLPA ever took that away, that wouldn't be the job for me.
That's amazing. I love priming canvas also. I also paint.
Nice.
Yes, I want to see your work. Tell me, do you listen to any kind of music when you paint?
Usually I'm listening to any jazz trumpeter that's ever lived. Roy Hargrove is my absolute favorite. So it always starts out with a little Roy Hargrove. Sometimes Miles Davis, but sometimes he's a little too blue for me, and I need something with a little more energy. But it's always, a little wine and a little jazz, and I get my acrylics going, and sometimes I paint 2 or 3 paintings at one time because I don't want to waste the paint. So
I love it.
Yeah, so that's what I do.
That's so cool. And are you very good at playing trumpet?
Not anymore. Unfortunately, the trumpet kind of went the wayside, but the painting has survived.
Yes. Well, we need to see your paintings. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, best other than winning the Super Bowl, what was your other best moment in the Super Bowl?
In the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
I just remember being so tired in that game because, Buffalo was running that no huddle offense. And I swear, if that game was 5 minutes longer, I'm not sure we would have won the game. A few guys got hurt, and the few of us that were out there, we stayed out there. And I just remember being so exhausted. So naturally, when that game ended and we had more points on the scoreboard than Buffalo, that was probably the next best moment.
Wow.
But there were some plays in that game. I just wanted to get in that game, and I just wanted to be able to say, man, I made a tackle in the Super Bowl. So I did that early on.
Yeah.
But we played team defense. I didn't get a sack. I didn't make an interception, and that was fine. But I was a tackler. And I think when I had games where I made lots of tackles, for me, that kind of checked the box on, having a good game. So I did that in the Super Bowl. I felt pleased and was able to walk off that field feeling like I had done everything I had to do to help my team.
Nice.
So my final question for you, Andre, is: so people like Nathan and Kia have made it into the sports business so far. I'm trying to get into it. I'm a sophomore in high school. Like, what advice do you have for somebody like me who wants to get into sports?
Well, I think you're already in it. You're doing a fantastic job today. I think I'm talking to a seasoned interviewer when I'm talking to you. You've asked some great questions. So I think you're already in it. But the one thing I tell lots of young people that are interested in the sports industry is, there's lots of different ways to get involved. There's the clubs. Every club has a foundation. There's so many leagues: basketball, baseball, soccer, hockey. The opportunities are endless. And I think if you're willing to look at foundations and some of the things that live on the edge of the actual team and the on the field game experience, you'll find out that it's really not that much on the fringe at all. So turn over every stone and look for every opportunity, because there's more opportunities in the sports industry now than there ever was. But you'll be fine. You'll be great.
Nice. Tell us, do you golf, Andre?
I do, certainly not as much as I would like to, but I do.
A lot of the after football
Not
seems
very
to be on
good.
the golf course.
Say
A
it
lot of
again.
the after football life seems to be a lot on the golf course.
Yeah.
It is. It is, and I play enough, but I'm not obsessed like some of the other guys.
Yes, I just need to play enough to play in the foundations events. So
Exactly.
where's your favorite place to vacation?
My favorite place to vacation. I'm a simple guy, so I think probably hands down, the beaches of South Carolina, Kiowa Island. We've, as a family, my wife and my kids, we've taken lots of trips there because it's easy and it's always so nice. So we enjoy that vibe, but probably the beaches of South Carolina would probably be my first choice.
Wow.
Great vibe. I'm going in June. Love it.
Yes.
Cool.
So before we get to the last two things, I want to ask you, do you have any funny pranks, funny moments throughout your career?
Oh my gosh, there were lots of funny moments. Unfortunately, I wasn't the creative one on so many of those jokes, but I sure did laugh my tail off so many times. But I think the funniest things, and most of this happened in Washington, because you're talking about some of the best pranksters of all time when you're talking about Russ Grimm and the Hogs and all those guys. It would never end. But I think the funniest stuff used to be when the rookies would be at training camp, and you would, during the lunch break, you would take all the stuff out of their locker and kind of hide their uniforms. I mean, that was painful, watching those young guys come in and see their lockers empty. It was almost like sticking a pin in a balloon. I mean, it was mean, but it was hilariously funny.
Wow.
And the other stuff. The other stuff, there used to be these dead snakes out on the field in Washington, out on the practice field. And every once in a while, someone would sneak one back inside and slip it inside someone's dress shoe for after they showered and, put their clothes back on and about to slip their shoes on. So everyone knew who had the snake in their shoe, and you're just watching. And, you see them slip that foot in that shoe, and you feel a little something. And then they try and shake it out when they shook out a snake. It was the funniest thing. Never got tired of laughing at that.
I gotta mute myself.
Never got tired of laughing at that. It was just hilarious every time. So.
And I just have to ask you this before we get to the last two things. So obviously,
Worst.
who was the toughest coach that you played underneath out of Joe Gibbs, Joe Paterno, and North Turner?
The toughest coach. I mean, it's not fair to put Paterno in the category with the pro coaches, because in college, I mean, it was unmerciful. There was nothing that they couldn't do to you back then. Thank God there's some rules now. But certainly practicing and playing for Coach Paterno physically was so demanding that anything after that was easy. So coming to the pros after Penn State, the physical part of it, that was easy. But certainly Gibbs was probably the toughest pro coach, because he kind of did it in an old school way. You kind of knew what you had every week. You knew how much time you were going to be on the field. You were always going to be in pads. So that was hard. I went to other teams after that, and a lot of times we never even put our shoulder pads on. We never hit, and it was a lot more enjoyable. Honestly, as a player that was, starting to age a little bit in the league, I appreciated not having to put my shoulder pads on every day. But it doesn't, and it doesn't mean that Coach Gibbs was wrong. He was probably right. We won lots of games and he won lots of championships.
Yeah.
But you see nowadays, lots of teams and clubs, and there's rules now. You can't practice guys as hard as you used to. You can't pad guys up all season long. So I'm happy for the players because I thought back when I was in it, I thought it was a lot. And if that part of the game had been different then, it would have been a lot more enjoyable for us players. We really worked hard and we used lots of energy to be able to be ready on Sundays. But I'm happy for these guys today that there's some regulations and some rules around how much you can hit, how much you can practice. And I'm sure they're truly enjoying that part of the game.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the last two things before we let you go, our team is part of this foundation. You know him, Coach Hugh Jackson. We're part of it. We're part of his foundation. We're trying to help him prevent human trafficking, make sure the community stays safe and the kids stay safe. So I'll send you his foundation so you guys can check it out.
Absolutely, we'd appreciate that for sure.
And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers right now?
I mean, being an old hospital administrator, my first real job after my career was running the emergency registration department at Virginia Hospital Center here in Arlington, Virginia. So I know the healthcare industry well. They're on the front lines. They're doing all that they can to protect themselves and to protect the community. So I know getting vaccinated is a personal choice. But, please make the right decision for you and your family and for your community.
Yeah.
That said, that's it. Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed the time and the conversation for sure.
Well said. And there it is. That wraps up episode 881 with former NFL linebacker, Penn State linebacker, Super Bowl champ from the Washington football team, Andre Collins. Now he does big stuff with the NFLPA Foundation. Go check him out. Go follow him on all social media formats. Man, this is truly an honor. Thank you for joining us today, and we learned a lot. And keep up the great work, and good luck to your Bears this season. And we would like to have you back on the show at some point later on down the line so you can meet the full team. But like I said, keep up the great work with the foundation, the NFLPA. You guys are doing big things, and I love the way it's heading into, and the NFL is heading into the right direction. But thank you again, and stay safe.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andre. So
See you
great.
next time.